Hello, everybody, and welcome to our overview today of our webinar going over the Aladtec scheduling system for the fire and rescue public safety departments out there. My name is David Snyder. I'm a support specialist here with Aladtec, and I'm joined today with Matt Zinnel, who's one of our system specialists. Today's webinar, it's going to be about 45 minutes, and we're going to take you through an overview of Aladtec itself. I'll give you some background on that, and then I'll turn it over to Mac, who's going to walk you through the system and talk about all the different elements of the system that could provide some benefit to you and some examples and how you get things organized all the way through. And if you have questions along the way, please feel free to use the GoToWebinar control panel. Submit some questions. I'll be here monitoring in the background to look for your questions and answer what I can, and anything we can't, we'll certainly follow up with you later. Also look for those handouts that are out there in the control panel too, that you can download some PDFs and have some information for yourselves later. When we're finished, we'll answer as many questions as we can. We'll have a Q&A at the end, and Matt will take you through some examples. I'll save some of those questions for him to walk through some things that you may be looking for there. So we'll start with just our company here, Aladtec. What are we? Well, we're a cloud-based scheduling and workforce management software platform. Our system is designed to handle the unique staffing habits for fire and other public safety agencies. We are based right here in River Falls, Wisconsin. We're about 30 minutes east of Minneapolis, St. Paul. And here's a nice spring, summertime looking photo of our building here that we're looking forward to seeing again sometime soon. We started in 2002 as a web-based scheduling software system for local ambulance service, and since then, Aladtec's grown to host more than 2,100 agencies and over 135,000 users across the United States and Canada. Our fire and rescue customers, we range from small rural departments with about 20 members or so to large urban agencies with several hundred firefighters and paramedics that are included. So you can have all sorts of lineups there. We do everything in-house. We do everything from engineering to configuration to sales to support. And you can see some of our staff right along there. And when you call, you're always going to be able to speak with me or somebody else here that's a real person there in Wisconsin and speak to all your answers and questions and needs with the free tech support. You can access our software anywhere, online via any device, any desktop, tablet, smartphone. It updates instantly, so your users will always have the most current version of their schedule and other content. So changes are live and they'll be able to see those and use those devices to submit their own information. There's no extra costs. We provide all setup, all training, unlimited telephone support for free as long as you're our customer. And here's a nice lineup of our staff for tech support that are on the phones helping everybody. So with Aladtec, you can create schedules as unique to your own department. Matt will show some of those examples, and it really boils down to as long as you can describe a pattern, we can help replicate it as a schedule in your system and be able to set it up for a couple years down the road all at once. So we're going to have some polls along the way here too for you to interact with us and get some information from you. And we're going to start with a quick poll to help get an idea of what our audience is here today. So we would like you to, just kind of put in one of the choices here. What best describes the agency that you represent out there? Are you a paid and volunteer fire and rescue? Are you a combination with EMS? Or do you have multiple stations across a city or county? So if you just take a moment and answer that question real quick, and we'll have some other polls throughout this the call today. So we hope to get a good idea of who we're talking to here. So we'll give it another second, give everybody a chance to answer. Wonderful. All right, well, let's take a look at that here real quick. So good, we got almost half of you with a bigger service, fire EMS with multiple stations. That's great. So I'm sure Matt will help describe what the benefits are there and examples of what can be seen. All right, next up, I'm gonna transfer this over to Matt. Let's get into the heart of it here and talk about Aladtec and what it looks like and how it works. And he'll give you the overview and some of the benefits and help you determine if our system is a good fit for your organization. Don't forget about asking questions and the handouts over there in the go-to panel and the Q&A at the end. So with that, take it away, Matt. Thank you.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Dave. Yeah, and again, hello everyone. Thank you for joining today. I am a system specialist here at Aladtec. My primary job here is just to take people who are interested in our product, learn more about them, and configure a system to make sure it will be a good fit. And like David mentioned, I just wanted to point out again, the system we're going to be walking through today is a generic system. So pretty standard, but as you can imagine, everybody operates a little bit differently. We can always customize our system to meet your needs and how exactly you want things to look. And again, feel free to drop those questions into Dave. He'll be answering those, and then I will also be addressing some at the end. But right away, let's just dive right in. So what we're looking at right now is our homepage. This is the first screen that anybody will see when they log into our desktop version. I will show you a little bit later down the road here what our mobile version looks like, but when they first log in, you can customize this first page to add any sort of images, videos, links for maybe training purposes, lots of different things you can do to personalize that and make that your own. But also on the homepage is going to be your dashboard. And the dashboard is really unique to each person based on what you're allowed to do within the program. So anyone who's going to have any sort of scheduling authority, so the ability to approve trades, time off, sign-ups, those are all going to be listed right here off to the right as a little preview there. Also, it'll show you any upcoming shifts of when you're scheduled to work next. We also do offer an information expiration report. So if you have any sort of licenses or certifications you want to track within our system, this will give you a heads up when things are coming close to expiring or have actually expired, followed by any sort of events, trades, or discussions, which we'll be walking through each of those as we're navigating through the program here. Now, the first page we're going to run through is the member database before we actually look at the schedule, mainly because a lot of the information in our database is hooked into other areas of the program, and it will help that make a lot more sense. So from this main screen here, there's definitely a lot of different ways you can see this information, depending on what you're trying to view. A lot of different filters we can utilize, sorting capabilities. And again, this page is only accessible to people who have administrative privileges, where your standard firefighter would not be able to see this. They really only get to see their own profile. But speaking of that, let's take Frankie here and let's look at Frankie's profile. So hover over his name, we're going to hit edit member and take you right into here. So a couple things to point out. You have their basic information on top. So first name, last name, login password, date hired. Those are all pretty standard. This is also where we define what is Frankie allowed to do in the system. Is he just have the member access level? Is he a battalion chief, captain? What work group is he in? And those different profiles have different rules behind them. So that's something we'll all design in the back end and determine what they're capable of doing in the system. Under that is our messaging information. So the two primary methods of communication in Aladtec are going to be through email and text message. There are about 4 or 5 different types of messages I'm going to show you here today. So you would plug in your mobile phone provider, and then your email. And these first couple options here, these are really more of the automated messages. So depending on how you want to be notified if you sign up for a shift or a time off request, when that's actually approved or denied, it will automatically send you a message back to you letting you know the status of that. And then off to the right here, we have a couple different options for our find coverage, which we'll be looking at on the calendar, form notifications, and then also our upcoming shift reminder, which the shift reminder is really beneficial mainly for any sort of part-time or per diem, where it's going to send out a message 24 hours before each of their shifts, and that'll just remind them of when and where they're actually working that next day. All right, under that is going to be any of our work qualifications. This is one of those sections that will be extremely customizable depending on what you need. So this will probably look almost completely different for many of our customers, as based on what you've chosen here regulates how each person can interact with the schedule. So who can I trade with? What shifts can I pick up? And that all can be designed for each person. Under that, we do also offer a time off accrual section. You don't necessarily have to use this feature just to use our time off tool and track vacation, things like that. But if you want to be able to monitor how many hours people currently have in their banks, it is something where we can design these accrual profiles. You will define the rate of time that each person earns, assign those people to those profiles, and then based on that, that'll give them their hours off to the right here. So really giving people access to see what they have. One of my favorite parts too is if that looks wrong to me as a firefighter, I can always click on this little clock here, and that'll actually show me a history of all the different changes that have been made to that bank. So I can, maybe be reminded, oh yeah, I did use that time on that particular day. And then everything else in this bottom section is also very customizable. So if you want to add or remove any of those bottom fields, you can do that yourself. That's all going to be done right under this members tab under a member database configurator page. And it's all drag and drop. So if you grab any of these fields off to the left side there, we can very easily just pull these right in. You can relabel them as needed, and also create new sections depending on what your needs are. One relatively new feature also that we added is in the database for any sort of certifications or really anything in general, we do also have an attachment option in here now. So if you did want to actually upload a scanned copy of a document or an image of something, you can attach that right to that person's profile also. All right, so one more thing in the database, and then we'll be hopping right forward to the schedule itself. That is going to be the mass messaging tool. So if you wanted to send a mass email or text out to every single person here, it's just as easy as checking this box. You can hit send message, and that'll go out to everybody, email and text, or email or text message. And we can, of course, create certain messaging groups for people. So if you did want to send a message to just your engineers, just your lieutenants, we can also target certain groups of people also. But that's about everything I have for the database. Let's go ahead and move forward to the actual calendar and show you what I have here. So for those who are somewhat familiar with our system, you will notice there are some changes. We do have some new shift labels on here. So it is a little bit touch of color on any of those days where you can easily scan across the day and see what shift is currently being ran. But with that said, I did actually want to generate another poll here really quick, just to get a quick feel for, let's pull this up here. So how people are currently managing scheduling at your agency. Is this something where you're used to a sort of scheduling system, or are you doing a lot of things currently on spreadsheets, whiteboards, Google, anything like that? We still hear a lot of different ways that people are doing things. Spreadsheets are relatively common, but we'll give everybody a couple of seconds here to finish that. All right, let's see what we got. Perfect. So yep, kind of as I expected, a lot of people are still managing their schedules on spreadsheets, pretty common, handful from other scheduling solutions. So definitely appreciate your interest in letting us show you what we have here. Perfect. So let me walk you through some of the other pages that we have. So this monthly calendar view is probably our most common view that we have, and you can really filter this down any way that you want. So if you are a larger department that has potentially 35 different schedules, just know that you can trim that down by battalion. You can trim it down based on shift. So if you wanted to, let's say, just see engine 1, I can hover over that, hit apply, and then that will actually just show me the group that I'm looking for. And that applies to all of our different views. So depending on what your preference is, if you want to use more of a daily view, this is going to give you a breakdown of just that day, who's working on an hour by hour basis. It is also kind of nice because it will give you your minimum staffing count right here if that is something that you have designed into your schedules. We do also offer a couple different weekly views. And again, like I'd mentioned, if you wanted to see all your different schedules across the board for each of those, that would look something like this. All right, so let's move back to the monthly calendar really quick here. And a couple things I wanted to run through in terms of live scenarios. So there are, of course, a number of different requests that can be placed, whether that's a like a trade request, a time off request, anything like that, that's going to be showing up on your main calendar here. Anything that is pending approval is going to have this A on it. So you can see there's some signups on here, a couple trades, some time off. That's going to give you an idea of what's actually happening for that day. So I wanted to show you what that looks like from the admin perspective, but let's actually move over to the firefighter side of things and show you what they would see and also how they can put in any of those requests. All right, so for the My Schedule page, as you can tell, this is just going to show each person and when they have to work. So again, from their perspective, it is just a matter of pulling this up. It's going to clean up the schedule quite a bit. And then as far as putting in any of those requests, if I just select any of these shifts here, say if I click on my shift for the 22nd, I get two options. I can either request a trade for that or I can request time off. So if we do hit request time off, this will give you a date and a time range. You can choose what type of time you want to use. The nice part about the accrual system is if you do have some time built into there, it'll actually tell you how many hours you have. So I have this many hours in my bank. It's going to cost me this many, all of that many after approval. This person currently doesn't have any, which is why we're showing negative, but we'll still go ahead and put in that request really quick just to approve that later. And then also for the trades, we do have a couple different types of trades, which again, each person can set up their own personal parameters on that. So the options we have are a giveaway and a swap, where a giveaway is more you're just going to work for me on this day and it doesn't really require payback as of right now, where a swap actually does require that you offer me a shift back before it even goes up for approval. So that way it's always kind of a day for day trade. A lot of people will set that up and regulate things to be, paid back within the same pay period or something like that. It'll also give you a list of different recipients here. That's going to be based on what position you're working. So this particular person is working on Medic 1 as a paramedic. So this is the list of all the other medics at my department who do have an offer or a shift that they could offer back to me. And you can send it out to all of them. Or let's say I was already talking to Bob, I could send that directly to Bob and I know that he can accept that. So Bob then would offer or send me an offer back. And then from there, once we've both agreed on it, that's where it would go up for approval, which I'll show you how we can improve that in just a moment. All right, so let's go back to our main calendar here. And we'll go ahead and improve some of those. So that trade, I can see right here for Ron. So we're gonna click on that trade. I can see he submitted this at this day and time. Just in general, everything in our system is date and time stamped. So if you are ever wanting to see exactly when something came in, whether it was any sort of request, we are gonna have that information for you. It's gonna give you a list of the recipients, all the details there. And then as the supervisor, you really do get the easy part of the job where all you have to do is hit approve. If you agree with that, it is automatically going to switch those two people, send both of them a confirmation message, and then also give you that permanent trade record right there on that day. So you know that a trade has occurred. All right, and then for any sort of time off. So again, you're looking for anything that has this green A on it. If I select this one for Herbert, we can click on that. Again, I can see the accrued hours for him, when it came in. You can type some notes there if you need to. More likely, if you're going to be denying it, you would do that so it goes in the message for the return. But we're going to hit approve for that one. So that'll remove Herbert from the schedule for that day and create that open shift. Now, another very common scenario that Aladtec helps a lot of people out with is filling a particular shift. So if we're looking at the 15th here, where I have this minimum staffing indicator popping up saying, hey, you need coverage for that day because you are below staffing. If you click on that, it'll actually tell you, hey, you're at 3 or 4. And then usually what's done at this point, depending on how that was created, is you'll send out what we call a find coverage alert. So this blue envelope right here on the 15th, if we click on that, that's going to give you a list here on the coverage alert of what positions you have open. So if we choose that captain spot, this will give you a list of those different recipients. Now, by default, what this tool is going to do for you is it's only going to send this message to people who are qualified to work that position. It will also factor out anybody who's already working during that time frame, and it will factor out anybody who's already on approved time off for that day. You can override either of those last two options by checking these boxes. And then also under your edit recipient list, this is where you can choose your contacts a little more manually. So it's very common to have like a full-time or part-time group that you could target. If I wanted to send something just to part-time, we can choose that group. That'll go out to them. It'll also have a preview of the message here. So you can see this is what the email looks like. So you don't really have to type anything either, but if you want to, you can up in this top portion. That'll have a link that they can click on. So you page that out, that'll go out to all of them, and then anybody who's interested can just log into the system and volunteer and sign up for that. So that can all also be done right from the main My Schedule page. So the one we were looking at a little bit earlier, if I'm searching for an open shift for that month, all I have to do is click on open shifts. And when I tap on that, you'll see there's a vacancy here on the 17th, the 23rd, the 29th, and any of the ones that I'm interested, I just have to click right onto that and sign up. So from more of the scheduling perspective, if you're the person who's actually approving these, let's walk through that process. So let's hover over Engine 1 here. We're going to hit Edit Schedule, and that's going to take you into this hourly editor. Now, this is a very important page, as this is where you make all of your day-to-day changes. You can add people, remove people, put them on leave, and then also do the approvals that I'm going to walk you through right now. So the 3 people who did sign up are going to float right to the top of my list. This is really more important if you have a larger system, as all these people on the bottom could be 100 people away, but they'll float right to the top, and we can bring in a lot of other factors into this screen. So if you're trying to pull calculations on total number of hours worked, total number of overtime, I can even factor in, let's say, some seniority figures or last time that maybe someone has accepted an overtime shift, a couple different options we have in there. So we want to get all that right here for you, so that way, once you are ready to make a decision, ultimately you can go in, find the person you need. We do have a lot of different time types that we can add. These are more for reporting purposes. So depending on how you want to code this shift, we can choose that. We'll just choose overtime, and then you can hit approve. So once you do hit approve, that does take a couple of actions there. It will assign Terrence to the schedule, automatically decline the other 3, and then everybody else who was involved there did get a message, or out of those 4 do get a message letting them know that they were approved or denied for that. All right, a couple other functions I just wanted to run you through quick on this page is a lot of our drag and drop functions. So as we know, for anybody who might be running their schedules as actual vehicles or your apparatus, or if you are going to do it by station, you can do that too, or even just by battalion. It's really up to you. But one of the main things is if you're moving people around from schedule to schedule on a regular basis, which most people do once you get your leave in, things like that. Let's say if I wanted to take Chad, I could actually drag and drop him. And if you look at that, it actually won't let me drop Chad in there because Chad's not a lieutenant. So it does factor that in right away when I pick him up. Now, if I take Kathleen, as you can see, that does stay white there, and that will allow me to move Kathleen down there. So you can really adjust people's schedules really quickly and easily just by dragging and dropping them from one schedule to another. And then, of course, you can add people to your schedule just by manually selecting their names and adding them in here. All right. Let me just double check one function here, as there is also a new tool that I wanted to make sure I showed everybody. This new tool that we have is called Extra Hours. So we're going to go through the final 2 changes here for the schedule itself. All right, let's grab Herbert here again. And for Herbert, let's say if you were working on, I know it was a couple days ago, but we'll look at the 9th here. So Herbert was working as a paramedic, or if it was even just yesterday in general, but if there's any sort of hours that aren't on the calendar, so any sort of unplanned time where an emergency happened, we all got called out, that needs to be logged, rather than filling out a form or trying to open up a schedule and just manually add people in there. A new tool that we have is this Extra Hours feature. So if we click on the 12th here, we're going to hit submit. And what that's going to allow me to do is choose a range of time. So let's say I actually got called in. I ended up working from 7 to noon yesterday. I was working on engine 1 as a firefighter, and then you can choose what type of code you want to apply to that. So that way when I select this is going to be overtime, I'm going to take that as comp, whatever that may be. You can put in your notes there for any sort of details that explain why you worked that. You can then hit request extra hours, and then that's now pending approval. So just like a time off request or something like that, it's something that your supervisor can then just go in, approve that, and then that will give you the confirmation and then pull right into our reports. All right. One moment here. And lastly, the next feature I'm going to show you for anybody who does have any sort of part-time staff, where you actually have people who might submit availability to you, and you're building the schedule based on that. There was also a recent enhancement to our system in terms of entering that information. So if I hover over the 14th here, we're going to hit edit availability, and that's going to open up our little calendar here. So how you can do this now is, let's say if I want to say I'm available from 7 to 1900, and you can now click on your calendar and say I'm available this day, that day. You can go through and just tap all the different days that you want. So once those have been selected, then you can hit add availability, and that'll map that out for the month. So really quick and easy to add that in there. That is also accessible from the mobile site, which I will be again walking through in a little bit here. And all of the availability that's been entered, that's something where you can then view it from the hourly editor. So if you're going in and trying to build your schedule based on that, then you can see all that information right in here. All right. Now, those are really the basic functions of the schedule itself. Of course, again, everybody has their own unique ways that they do things, but we're going to go ahead and move on to some of the additional features in the system, and then, of course, send it Dave any questions that you have. The next tool we're going to be running through is our forms tool. So the forms tool is an extremely customizable feature where you can build any of these from scratch. It's something we're happy to help you out with if you're looking for a little guidance on that. But it's very common to have like vehicle check sheets, maintenance requests. These are all things that people, again, can fill out right on their smartphone. If you have a tablet on the vehicle, you could have them fill it out right from there. Keep those forms paperless. It also does a number of other things for you in terms of sending out notifications. So if there is something, let's say, wrong with the vehicle, or some sort of request that needs to be managed right away, I can have that automatically generate a notification to the person who needs to know that, which they can then log into the system, pull up that submission from anywhere, see what's going on with that, and then they can even enter in their their notes on the bottom of it. And I think another big part of what this forms tool is going to give you are the different reporting functions. So as far as reports go, that'll give you, if I wanted to run a report on every single time that the checklist was done for this vehicle for all of last year, I could get all that data in just a matter of seconds in our reports, and then you can sift through that really however you need to. All right. Some of the other reports that I wanted to talk about are going to be the scheduled time report is probably our most commonly used one. This is one of those reports that's going to give you a breakdown per shift per person and give you all the different details of when they worked, what the different time codes are, any sort of leave. A lot of different ways to filter through this, and just general rule of thumb, all of our reports here, they do export to Excel in a CSV format. So if you need to take this data out of our system, it is really easy to do so. You could also print it, save it as a PDF, but most people are taking the export and taking that data out that way. We do also have a summary report, so if you wanted to just get a total number of hours, that'll give you kind of a different perspective on those and give you some more clean numbers there. And then another report that I always show everybody is our system log. So the system log is a really important tool that tracks every single action that's ever taken within our system. So it truly is your audit trail to look back and see why something is the way it is, who did what within our system, and you can see that all these different date and time stamps. And there's no limit on when that's recorded. So like I said, if you want to find out when somebody did something last year, it's just a matter of diving in here and using some of our filters to find that information. All right. In terms of accountability, there's another very important messaging tool that I always like to show everybody. That is right here. So under required messages, let's say if we want to create a new message, and I've seen a lot of people use it for like policy changes or any sort of new training material. So you can say, please review this section in the new policy. And then that's something that can actually be uploaded into our storage area, which I'll show you here momentarily. But the main difference with this message, it's not like our other emails and texts. It's going to stay internal in our program. So the next time that Frankie actually logs into Aladtec, this is the message he's going to see. And the beauty of this tool is Frankie can click on whatever he wants. There's no way he can get past this. He has to check this box that says, I agree that I've read and understand this message, hit continue. And then that will give you, as the person who posted it, a date and timestamp for when every single person acknowledged your message, or maybe if they haven't yet. So even on that side of things, if it's very time-sensitive information, you could easily pull up a list and see who hasn't seen that message. All right, and then I also mentioned the storage area. It's basically a section where you can upload any sort of documentation. You have 200 gigabytes of free storage space, so feel free to create some folders to organize those. Lots of different things that we can do right in there. We also do have a discussion section, which is going to give you the ability to post like a topic, and then with that topic, people can make comments on it. But aside from those main features, there are a lot of other configuration pieces in the back end of our system. I might touch on some of those during the questions here today, but for the most part, that's all of the interface that you would see on the desktop version here. So really the next piece I wanted to briefly run everybody through is going to be our mobile site. So we're going to take our system really quick here and do my best to make it look like a phone. Bear with me one second, and this is what our mobile site looks like. So from here, this is where you can see your dashboard. So right when you log in on your phone, it's going to show you any sort of upcoming shifts, available trades, open shifts, so really just anything that's very current or should be on your radar is going to be right on your main page when you log in. We also do have a daily summary view. So if you wanted to just see who you're working with today, or any other day in general, you can go through your little calendar here and pick which day you want to view. It'll show you everybody who's working, anybody who's on time off. That would all be listed right there. But most importantly, on the mobile site is going to be the My Schedule view. The My Schedule is going to give you the ability to take all of those actions that I was mentioning earlier on the desktop version. So if you want to interact with any of these days here, let's just tap on the 14th. That's going to tell me, all right, you're working from 7 to 1900 that day. If you want to make any modifications to that, you just tap right onto that shift, hit request trade, hit request time off. It all functions in a very similar fashion. You can put in any of those like extra hours requests. You can do all your trades. And then also, like I'd mentioned, if you wanted to add some availability for those who might have part-timers, you can also do that very similar process where you can go through, tap the different days, and then plug it in that way too. All right. And then lastly, of course, if you do have any forms, I know I'd mentioned this a couple times, so if there were forms that you actually wanted people to fill out, you can open those up right on your smartphone too and fill that out right from here. All right, so we're going to go back to the full site really quick here. Just a couple of items I wanted to touch on before we jump into the questions session. So if you are thinking of questions or if you were holding on to those, feel free to put those in right now. But lastly is our help tab. We have a ton of different training videos. So if you're looking for some sort of material just to learn a little bit more about a certain section of our system, a lot of great videos in here. We also do, of course, have a mobile. Let's go back to the admin. There's a few more in here. All right, so we'll scroll through some of these for different setups, configuration, reports. All of our webinars are actually also uploaded right in here for the customer ones that we provide. There's the mobile one again. That'll walk you through how to actually set it up right on your phone. So we have a ton of great content for that. And then also one of my favorite parts about Aladtec is our support team. And I can't speak highly enough about them. And I'm sure if you talk to any of our current customers, they will also do the same. We have an outstanding support team here on site where you can call in anytime during regular business hours. It's going to be 8 to 6 Monday through Friday Central. You can also send us an email at support@aladtec.com or give us a call at the 888 number. We do have an emergency contact line, so if something crazy outside of business hours happens and you're really looking for help, you can definitely give us a call on that, and we have people waiting for those calls also. But my favorite part about that department is when you call in, you don't have to press 1 to talk to this person or listen to some hold music or anything like that. When you call that number, you get a live person on the phone right away who's ready to help you, or you'll get our voicemail and we'll give you a call right back if they're all on the phones. But more often than not, they're sitting there ready and willing to take your call. All right, so at this point, I just wanted to mention again for maybe people who don't have questions, who might be hopping off soon, we do have a lot of those handouts in the GoToWebinar control panel, so feel free to pull those up and download those. But for anybody who does have questions, feel free to drop those in the chat right now. I'll be going through those for about another 10 minutes or so here, and then, of course, you can always reach out to us via the website or giving us a call at that 888 number. But let's go ahead and see what we have for questions here yet. All right. So it looks like our first question here from Dave. Let me read that really quick. Okay, so it looks like Dave here does have a handful of part-time and full-time staff, and he was wondering if we had anything to help when trying to regulate their hours. So that's actually a tool that we have called work limits. So under work groups, let's just look at our full-time one really quick. The work groups are where we can set up, can this person submit availability? What are the different sign-up restrictions for them? Do we have any rules behind trading? But specifically, what Dave was asking was about work limits. So this is where you can define in our system is anybody, or I don't allow people to work more than 36 hours in a row. Or for my part-time staff, I also don't want them to be scheduled for more than a certain number of hours in a week or a pay period or something like that to keep them at that part-time mark, along with a minimum number of time off in between shifts. So if you do have like a required rest period, that's something that we could set up here too. And the options for this one is it will either show you a warning, require additional approval, or just do not allow altogether. And the nice part about that one for your part-time is you can have their signups automatically approve themselves until they hit a certain threshold, and then it will require approval. So a couple of different ways to do that. All right, let's see what else we have here. I had one question here on, does our mobile site work on Android and iOS? So in general, our system works across all browsers. So whether or not you're using Chrome, Firefox, Safari, any sort of browser, then you can open that up, and we do support across the board for all of them, as long as it is a relatively up-to-date browser. So that will work on all devices there. All right, so looks like we have one here from Jim. All right, basically 212 hours. Yes, so that actually, so Jim's question here was their pay cycle for overtime is after 212 hours in a 28-day pay cycle. So we do have flexible pay cycles, it can really be defined however you would like. And we could also do that under the work groups section. So you might have seen that when I was in here, is for overtime rules, what I would do is switch this to a day range instead of a week range. I suppose week would also work, but we can do 28-day range, and basically anything over that 212, and then you can define when is the start of that. Does it start on a Sunday or a Monday, something like that? And it's also nice having that in the work groups too, because if that range is only for some people and maybe you have a different range for others, then you can define that independently through these work groups. Just reading my next question here. Bear with me one moment. I think I understand this question here, Robert. We might have to have a conversation after the webinar here today. So I have Robert here who asked about, is there a way to automatically set up like an overtime list for outside jobs, or basically when the next person is in line, will they automatically be notified for the next overtime shift? So that type of notification isn't necessarily going to be automatic to the point where if the job pops up, it's going to know exactly who that should go to right away. Usually what's done is using the find coverage alert. You can send that out when those jobs occur. And lots of times what I'll do is we'll manage that with sort of like a date list here, where this is be like last, we'll do like last outside job OT accepted or something like that. You can really label that however you need. And then when you go into the hourly editor to actually assign that job to somebody, so in theory, you've sent out that find coverage alert. That's generally going out to everybody who could work that. But one of the ways of tracking overtime is you could have like a date field here that would show you this person picked up a job on that day. The last time that person picked up a job was on that day. And then when those signups come in, you can prioritize those based on those dates. So it's just a matter of updating that when you do assign them to, let's say, a job today, then I would update that to today's date, which then would effectively push them to the bottom of that list, sorting that on an oldest to newest range there. So hopefully that answers your question. If it doesn't, like I said, you can always call in and we can discuss that more. All right, let's see what other questions we have here. Okay, so it looks like we have a question here on access levels, just in terms of how do I really tell the system who's allowed to manage what and how some of the different notifications work. So I'll briefly run through some of that. I don't want to get too deep into this one here just yet here, because each person's a little bit different, but our access levels are where we can define this person is allowed to manage these schedules. They're also allowed to touch this part of the system or manage that part of the system, or even just maybe view it but not be able to edit that information. So lots of different settings that we can add for each person in here. More often than not, for like a battalion chief or a captain or something, you're going to give them authority over all of these, all of your schedules here. However, by default, that's actually going to allow, or that's actually going to have each of those people receive messages from everybody from all of those schedules, where I might only want to be notified from my squad. So one of the ways that we can change that is in somebody's profile who actually is an administrator or a scheduler. You'll see this section here, notify me of members' requests, and this can be customized in a handful of different ways, but a very common way we would set that up now is either by work group or access level. And for work group, not only could we have part-time, full-time, volunteer, you could have your A, B, C options. So if I only wanted to be notified of A, I could set that up right here, where if I still, of course, need to be able to manage the B shift for an oncoming call or something like that, then I can do that too. All right. Oh, we had one person ask here about our time clock. So yes, the time clock is one of the, it's really one of the only additional features in our system that actually does come at an additional cost. Where the time clock is, it's a web-based kiosk that you can set up on really any sort of machine. We can make it required to be on a specific machine. And basically when you pull that up, it will look something like this, where you can see a list of all your different members. You can select their name, type in their password, hit clock in or clock out, and then that will show you that person, or give those records for that person. And from there, let's pull this back up here. That will give you some different records that you can compare against your actual scheduled time. You can run a lot of reports on that, and really give you that accountability that you might be looking for if you are seeking a time clock. We also do, one of the notable functions that a lot of people really like about that are going to be the grace periods. So if you did have if you wanted the ability to say, hey, if you're more than 15 minutes early or more than 5 minutes late, then I need you to type in a reason as to why you're doing so or why you are so late. So it's really more for the reporting functions there. And again, like I said, I did mention that does come at an additional cost. For anybody who is interested in terms of pricing, of course, you can just reach out to us and we're happy to generate a quote for you or an estimate on what that might be. But with that said, we are right out of time here. So I do really appreciate all the great questions and everybody who joined us here today for this high-level overview of the Aladtec system. Anybody who is interested in a demo, there should be a demo link right in the chat there. So feel free to click on that. That'll point you in the right direction. But really hope that what I've shown you today has helped you understand how Aladtec can help streamline some of your different scheduling tasks. And for more details, customer reviews, videos, anything like that, again, it's going to be www.aladtec.com, or give us a call at 888-749-5550. Again, thank you all for joining us today, and hope you enjoy your day.